Welcome to American Pulse and Paranormal, where we dive into the depths of mystery and terror. We recommend wearing headphones to fully enjoy the chilling experience that awaits. In this video, I will share with you my terrifying story that took place in the middle of nowhere, deep in the dark woods. Prepare yourselves, as this story is not for the faint of heart. Hello everyone, my name is John, a 31-year-old petroleum engineer from Texas. What started as an adventurous camping trip with my family turned into the most horrifying experience of my life. It all began on a cold winter night. My wife, our 7-year-old daughter Lucy, and I decided to escape the bustling city life and seek peace and tranquility in the deep woods. We were well prepared, carrying all the essentials for a week-long stay, including tents, food, and a camera to document our adventure. We arrived at the forest on a crisp Friday morning. The towering trees and the dense foliage gave the woods an eerie ambience, but we were too excited to pay much attention to it. After setting up our campsite, Lucy immediately began exploring the area around our tent, her curiosity unbounded by the fear that began to creep into the back of my mind. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor, we called Lucy back to the campsite. When we realized she was missing, my heart sank. Panic set in as my wife and I began to search frantically for her. The forest, once an exciting escape, now seemed like a labyrinth designed to swallow us whole. Equipped with flashlights and cameras, we divided into small groups to cover more ground. The night grew darker and the sounds of the forest grew more menacing. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig, sent shivers down my spine. The forest seemed alive, watching us, mocking our attempts to find Lucy. We called out her name repeatedly, our voices echoing off the trees. Then, faintly, we heard a distant cry. It was Lucy's voice, filled with fear. We sprinted toward the sound, fueled by sheer determination to save our daughter. As we pushed through the dense underbrush, the cry grew louder. When we finally reached the source of the sound, we found Lucy huddled behind a massive tree trunk, her eyes wide with terror. She clung to me as if her life depended on it. But before we could comfort her, a chilling noise behind us made us freeze. Turning around, we saw a shadowy figure moving through the trees. It was massive, and its presence seemed to distort the very air around it. The trees bent and snapped under its weight as it approached. The darkness grew thicker, wrapping itself around us like a suffocating blanket. My heart raced. I tried to make sense of what I was seeing, but my mind refused to process it. This was not something that should exist in our world. The creature, whatever it was, moved closer, and I could feel its malevolent gaze piercing through the darkness. Desperation took over. I grabbed a large branch, trying to muster the courage to protect my family. My voice trembled as I shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" My words echoed through the forest, but there was no response, only the oppressive silence that followed. The creature began to speak in a language I couldn't understand. Its voice was deep and resonant, vibrating through my very bones. I felt an unnatural force pushing against my will, attempting to dominate my thoughts. The power it wielded was overwhelming. In a split second, the shadow vanished, leaving us in an eerie stillness. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Shaking with fear and confusion, I picked Lucy up, and we made our way back to the campsite. My wife and I tried to rationalize what we had seen, but our minds kept drawing blanks. Our friends, who had also been searching, were waiting for us with worried expressions. We recounted our encounter, but disbelief was written on their faces. To them, it seemed too fantastical to be real. The rest of the night was spent in restless silence, our minds too occupied by the terror we had witnessed. The following morning, we packed our things and decided to leave the forest. The experience had left us shaken and exhausted. Back in the city, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The image of that shadowy figure haunted my dreams and every quiet moment. Determined to find answers, I decided to return to the forest with a few close friends. We were all curious, but also wary of the dangers we might face. We equipped ourselves with better gear and set out on a mission to uncover the truth behind the eerie events. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. The air was thick with tension, and every step seemed to draw us further into a nightmare. We retraced our steps, heading back to the spot where we had encountered the creature. Suddenly, we heard that same otherworldly voice again. It seemed to come from all directions, reverberating through the trees. We followed the sound, our hearts pounding in unison, until we stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin. It looked abandoned, with vines creeping up its walls and the roof sagging under the weight of time. We cautiously entered the cabin, our flashlights illuminating the dust-laden air. Inside, we found an assortment of strange artifacts. Old books with indecipherable writing, tools that seemed to belong to another era, and symbols etched into the walls. Among the clutter, there was a map of the forest with various markings, some of which led to the spot where we had encountered the creature. As we examined the map, the door creaked open slowly. We turned to see a figure standing in the doorway. It was a man, or at least he appeared to be. He was dressed in tattered clothing, his eyes hollow and distant. He spoke in that same foreign language we had heard before. We tried to communicate with him, but he seemed to be in a trance, unresponsive to our questions. Suddenly, he started to walk toward us. The air grew colder with each step he took. My friends and I backed away, unsure of his intentions. The man reached out and placed his hand on my shoulder, speaking in hushed tones. Though I couldn't understand his words, I felt a strange sense of urgency in his voice, as if he was trying to warn us. Then, as mysteriously as he had appeared, he vanished into thin air. We were left standing in the cabin, grappling with the inexplicable events. We decided to follow the map's markings, hoping they would lead us to some answers. As we delved deeper into the forest, the landscape became increasingly surreal. The trees twisted and warped as if they were alive, whispering secrets to each other. After hours of trekking, we reached a clearing where the ground was scorched, and the trees around it were twisted into unnatural shapes. The feeling of dread was palpable, and we knew we were close to uncovering the forest's dark secret. In the center of the clearing, there was a stone altar covered in ancient symbols. It looked like it had been there for centuries, weathered by time but still exuding a menacing presence. As we approached, the air around us seemed to hum with energy, and a low rumble echoed through the clearing. Suddenly, the ground beneath us began to shake. The shadowy figure we had encountered earlier emerged from the darkness, its presence more terrifying than before. It stood before us, its eyes glowing with an unearthly light. The creature spoke, and this time, I could almost understand its words. It was a warning, a message of doom and despair. We realized then that we had ventured too far, uncovered something that was never meant to be disturbed. The forest was alive with ancient, malevolent forces that sought to protect their secrets at any cost. We had no choice but to flee, our hearts pounding with fear. As we raced through the forest, the creature pursued us, its presence a constant threat. The trees seemed to close in around us, making escape nearly impossible. But somehow, through sheer willpower and determination, we managed to find our way back to the campsite. Exhausted and terrified, we packed our belongings and left the forest, vowing never to return. The experience left a lasting impression on all of us. The forest had shown us its darkest secrets, and the echoes of fear would haunt us forever. Back in the city, life gradually returned to normal, but I could never shake the feeling of dread that lingered in the back of my mind. The events in the forest had changed me, leaving me with a deep respect for the unknown and the mysteries that lie hidden in the world. After our harrowing encounter in the forest, life in the city seemed mundane and uneventful by comparison. The shadowy figure, the old cabin, and the chilling voices haunted my dreams, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was left unfinished. Determined to find answers, I convinced a few close friends to accompany me back to the forest. We were better equipped this time with high-powered flashlights, cameras, and camping gear. The drive to the forest was filled with nervous anticipation as we recounted the events of that fateful night. Upon arriving, the forest greeted us with its familiar, oppressive silence. The air was thick with tension, and the towering trees seemed to loom over us, casting long shadows that danced in the dim light. We set up camp near the edge of the forest, close enough to retreat if needed but far enough to immerse ourselves in the mystery. As the night fell, we retraced our steps, guided by the map we had found in the old cabin. The forest was alive with eerie sounds, and every rustle of leaves sent shivers down our spines. The path led us deeper into the woods, where the trees grew thicker, and the darkness seemed to consume everything. While navigating through the dense forest, we stumbled upon an ancient trail leading to a hidden cave. It was barely visible, overgrown with vines and covered in moss. Our curiosity piqued. We followed the trail until we reached the entrance of the cave. Inside, the air was cool and damp, and the faint glow of our flashlights revealed an old woman sitting near a small fire. She looked ancient, her face lined with the marks of time, and her eyes glimmered with a strange wisdom. She greeted us with a nod, as if she had been expecting us. "Welcome, travelers," she said in a raspy voice. "I have been waiting for you. I know why you have come." We were taken aback by her knowledge of our situation. She introduced herself as Elara, a guardian of the forest. She told us that the darkness we had encountered was an ancient evil, awakened by the careless actions of those who had come before us. Elara explained that the only way to protect ourselves from the malevolent force was to bathe in a sacred pool deep within the forest. The water of the pool was blessed, and it would shield us from the dark powers that roamed the woods. However, the journey to the pool was fraught with danger, and we would need to be brave and vigilant. Determined to rid ourselves of the terror that had plagued us, we agreed to follow Elara's guidance. She led us through the forest, her knowledge of the terrain guiding us through the thick underbrush and treacherous paths. The forest seemed to grow darker and more oppressive as we ventured deeper. Along the way, we encountered several terrifying phenomena. We heard whispers that seemed to come from the very trees around us, saw shadows darting between the branches, and felt an unnatural chill in the air. Our fear grew with each step, but Elara's presence was a reassuring beacon in the midst of the darkness. At one point, we were attacked by a swarm of dark, ghostly figures that emerged from the shadows. Their touch was ice-cold, and their wailing filled our ears with an unbearable noise. Elara chanted an incantation, and the figures dissipated, but the experience left us shaken and on edge. After what felt like hours of trekking, we finally arrived at the sacred pool. The water glowed with a soft, ethereal light, and the air around it felt calm and serene. Elara instructed us to enter the pool and immerse ourselves completely. One by one, we stepped into the pool. The water was cool and refreshing, and as it enveloped us, we felt a sense of peace and protection. The fear that had gripped our hearts began to dissipate, replaced by a newfound strength and resolve. As we emerged from the pool, Elara handed each of us a small pendant. "These will protect you from the darkness," she said. "But remember, the forest is a living entity. Show it respect, and it will protect you in return." With Elara's guidance, we made our way back to the clearing where we had first encountered the creature. The oppressive darkness had lifted, and the air was filled with a sense of hope. We knew that we still had a task to complete, but now we felt prepared to face whatever lay ahead. We gathered around the stone altar once more. The book of rituals opened before us. The symbols seemed to glow with renewed energy, and the ground beneath us began to tremble. As we chanted the incantations, the shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its presence more menacing than ever. But this time we stood our ground. The protection of the sacred pool and Elara's pendants gave us the strength to continue the ritual. The symbols on the altar pulsed with light, growing brighter with each word we spoke. The creature's voice grew louder, but we did not falter. In a final, desperate push, we completed the ritual. The air around us exploded with light, and the creature let out a deafening roar. The ground shook violently, and we were thrown to the ground. When we looked up, the creature was gone, and the oppressive darkness had lifted. The forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as the first light of dawn broke through the canopy. We had done it. We had put the malevolent force to rest, freeing the forest from its grip. Exhausted but relieved, we made our way back to the campsite and packed our belongings. As we left the forest, I felt a sense of closure, knowing that we had faced our fears and emerged victorious. Back in the city, life slowly returned to normal. The memories of our ordeal in the forest remained, but they no longer held the same power over us. We had confronted the darkness and emerged stronger for it. The book now rests on a shelf in my study, a reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the unknown. The photograph and the note are safely tucked away, a testament to the bravery and determination that brought us through the darkest of nights. Before we conclude, American Pulse and Paranormal would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for joining us on this spine-chilling journey. Your support and engagement mean the world to us. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of our thrilling adventures. Your feedback and comments are always welcome and help us bring you the best content. And remember, for the best experience, always wear headphones. Stay safe and keep exploring the unknown.